A good midday Wednesday. Roger Hill of Wuthering Heights, VELCO Weather Hazards forecaster. This is the VELCO Weather Hazards outlook for the 25th of October. We're looking at a stretch, and this is going to be with us for quite some time, but it's basically a moisture train that comes in out of a trough of lower pressure, kind of rotating around this area of higher pressure. A lot of moisture coming in off the Gulf of Mexico and Texas. Then it gets pulled and sheared by the jet stream and pulled out with kind of a frontal boundary right along this particular area. Little sporadic incremental bits and pieces of clouds and showers will kind of cruise across mainly the northern tier, occasionally getting into central Vermont, but for the most part it's the northern areas that will be most affected. Over here we have Tammy, and of course the tropics remain very active still going into late October. This is a Category 1 system, Tammy, and it's not really going to any threat of to land in North America, but it's being sheared right now. You can see the shearing action for the jet stream winds aloft with kind of a trough aloft here, and that jet stream shear just kind of an interesting influence and how far that's going well up into, it looks like the British Isles, UK. The other interesting thing of note here is a pretty vigorous trough, kind of positively tilted, that is pulling away in the north and kind of lingering to the southwest, that axis. But this is a significant upper level system, and it's providing a lot of cold air that's pushed across the country. And what we can also see is some snow across parts of Montana. This is also erasing any kind of leftover warm air across portions of Canada. And eventually, this colder air is going to sweep all the way from basically the west coast to the east coast, across Labrador, Newfoundland, the Canadian Maritimes. And after this frontal system, in a few days here, we're talking probably over the weekend, we'll see by Monday and into Tuesday of next week, we could see a little bit of wet snow as some of this very colder air will have draped itself across Canada and begin to spread into parts of the northeast United States. But it's going to have trouble kind of, it's not really going to penetrate very far. That's the other thing as it looks right now. On the left-hand side, we have the European. On the right side, we have the Canadian GEM model. And as you're on the computer model, you can see just a little bit of sporadic precipitation right along the U.S.-Canadian border. And this is valid into the evening hours. Now, for tomorrow, Thursday, it is our only real day that's going to feature dry weather until we get into tomorrow evening in this little bit of a lobe here. This is a warm frontal genesis. It's going to kind of work on in and then lift back into Canada. That's on Thursday night, and then on Friday, a little bit more precipitation works in during the afternoon hours, but you're not looking at very much. And again, just sporadic precipitation, really not a big deal. Parts of Canada, they're seeing that, as I mentioned earlier, there's much less warmer air now, and it's really just along the northeast United States, really from the Great Lakes east. That's seeing the warmer air. This weather system producing snow on its northern branch, and we can see colder air making some inroads into the Rockies, the western parts of the U.S., the northern tier. And then finally, we have a frontal boundary that's draped across the region from this weather system tracking into the Canadian Maritimes. It tries to push down some cooler air, and it does make it in here, but it comes after this sort of secondary wave begins to push in. And you can see that this is, once again, an elongated kind of deal from Texas all the way back into parts of Maine. And after this frontal boundary goes on by, which is a little bit beyond the period now, we're starting to see some inroads here into a little bit of wet snow. Very minor amounts, though. And again, this colder air is going to be kind of rough to get down here because we have a lot of circulation with this sort of leftovers of the old Bermuda high kind of stretched out. And you can see that even here, it looks like kind of a wet nor'easter, but on its northern fringes, this would be along about Wednesday, the 1st of November. We could see some snow from this. That would be our next bigger storm system, but that's well around the corner. Centered on the grid point of Montpelier, Vermont, we have the GFS ensemble modeling here with the plumes, and what you can see is 3 hourly precipitation, sort of sporadic, coming at us here. Nothing real major, measurable. That's the 3 hourly QPF. The total QPF looks like this. We're looking at under 5/10 of an inch, but that's even late in the period. And looking at precipitable water, kind of gives you an idea. We're pretty high right now, but we're on the edge of that precipitation, and then as colder air begins to work on in, things will dry out pretty amazingly. You can see how low that is. Looking at precipitation type, it's mainly rain until we get into a little bit of wet snow. That's going to be after this weekend. And looking at the total snow, I wouldn't worry too much about this. This is over-amped right now in the GFS ensemble, but probably you're looking at just trace amounts on grassy surfaces, and this would be as we head toward the new month of November. 850 hectopascal temperatures. You're looking at fairly warm, well above normal, and then a pretty good slide to colder temperatures. This is the 0-degree isotherm, so temperatures cold enough to support a little bit of wet snow atop Mount Mansfield if we get precipitation. Looking at the streaks of precipitation, this is our frontal boundary, much as we just looked at, and you can see that it's really down in parts of Texas with the Gulf of Mexico moisture, and a lot of enhancement with areas of low pressure rolling along the frontal boundary as waves of low pressure, and of course that makes it in here, but at much less amounts. This is just a half an inch, and this supports 1 inch, and the main effect is going to be up to the north of the Canadian border during the next few days. Looking at the 2-meter temperature anomalies across the U.S. and really the world as it faces us here, we're looking at below normal temperatures, some pretty good below normal temperatures right now in parts of Western Canada. Again, this is going to be making a track east. We got above normal temperatures with high latitude blocking over the pole, and this is forcing that jet stream to cut down. Meanwhile, out to the west, we're still seeing kind of early autumn, late summer almost temperatures in some locations. Also wanted to show you that we are picking up some snow now across parts of Siberia, but it's mostly in northern areas, and we're seeing very little in the way of snow amounts below normal for this time of year across parts of North America. Model temperature guidance, we're looking at temperatures running about 9 degrees or even more above normal. This stretch basically along that ridge of higher pressure. This is where the cold front sets up, and this is below normal temperatures. And look at that, 27 degrees departure from normal. That's significant. I mentioned that colder air is going to push east, and indeed, you can see the differences here, but not quite yet in the southeast and east coast. We're going to see temperatures head toward neutral once we head about 3 days later, 3 to 7 days out from the Weather Prediction Center. This is our crazy setup here of the 51-member ensemble looking at the Weather Nerds' latest tropical cyclone analysis. And this is the leftovers of Tammy. It has a lot of possible routes, but again, no issues for the East Coast as high pressure and low pressure systems off the coast are going to keep it at bay. And current conditions here on this midday Wednesday. You can see temperatures already up to 61 degrees at the Burlington International Airport. Roger Hill, Wuthering Heights. Thanks for watching.